voters of the Ann Arbor, serving all of Washtenaw County. I welcome you to our Zoom forum tonight featuring candidates from the Michigan House of Representatives 53rd District. The candidates will be on the ballot in the general election on November 3rd. This year, the League of Women Voters is celebrating 100 years of expanding voter rights, educating voters, and influencing legislation at the local, state, and national levels. We're pleased to sponsor these forums. The League is a nonpartisan civic organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. While the League does not support candidates or parties, we do take stands on issues we have studied. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls. Thus, we bring you tonight's forum. Our moderator this evening is Jeff Smerek, who will explain the format and get us started. Jeff?
Thank you, Sue, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And now it's my honor to introduce the two candidates running for the Michigan House of Representatives 53rd District, Representative Yousef Rabi and Ms. Jean Holland. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for participating in this forum. The forum today will have this format. Each candidate will have an opening statement of up to 1 minute. Each candidate will have a closing statement of up to 90 seconds. In between, I will ask questions which came from the Washtenaw County community. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. At appropriate times, a sign on the screen will indicate the time remaining, 30 seconds, and then stop. If you have used up your time, you will be allowed to finish your sentence, and then your microphone will be muted so that the other candidate has an equal opportunity to participate. The candidates will begin speaking in alphabetical order. Depending on the number of questions, all candidates will have an opportunity to be the first or last to answer the questions. And now to the opening statements. Ms. Holland, may we have your opening statement, ma'am? And you need to unmute.
Hello, my name is Jean Holland. I'm the 4th generation of my family to be born in Michigan. I was born in Detroit and raised in Southeast Michigan. I moved to Ann Arbor in 1965, and I graduated from Ann Arbor High in 1968. I attended U of M and Eastern Michigan and earned my BBA in Business Computer Systems from EMU. I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned several businesses, and I understand the challenges of making a living. And I'm a strong proponent of small business, understanding that small business is the backbone of our economy.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. And now, Representative Rabi, may we have your opening statement, sir?
Absolutely, Jeff. Thank you so much. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this fantastic forum. Coming to you from Lansing, the capital. We just finished session today, and hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Yousef Rabi. As I said, I am serving in my 2nd term in the Michigan House of Representatives, representing the good people of the city of Ann Arbor, 53rd District. I also serve in the State House as the Democratic floor leader, serving our caucus members on the Democratic side of the aisle in that leadership position. Before I was a state representative, I also served as a county commissioner in Washtenaw County, serving as the chair of the board for 2 years. Some of the things that I've been fighting for are fighting for single-payer universal health care, fighting to enact Green New Deal policies at the state level, fighting against climate change, and making sure that our kids get adequate resources in the classroom. We need to fight to protect our teachers, to make sure that we get funding in the classroom. And those are some of my top priorities, as well as fighting for equity in our state to make sure that everybody has a fair shot.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Representative, and thank you, candidates. And now to the questions. As a reminder, I will be reading each question once, and it will not be repeated unless requested. The first question starts with Ms. Holland. The COVID-19 virus has now infected more than 120,000 Michigan citizens, and it's killed about 7,000 Michigan citizens. What can Michigan do to control the pandemic going forward, especially into the fall and winter seasons? And you need to unmute.
Michigan should take strong measures to protect our aged and frail and people who are susceptible to the virus. However, we have to learn how to live with it because it's really not going away. And we can't stop living in a fearful manner. If we take steps to preserve the social distancing and wearing our masks and keeping our most frail segregated, life will go on. This is something we're going to have to learn to live with.
Thank you, ma'am. And Representative Rabi, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question. It's a really important one. This pandemic has changed our planet, has changed humanity, and we've been tested as a state, as a community, as a nation, and as a world. And what we have seen is the failure in states that have decided to not take this pandemic seriously, that more people have died, that the rates of infection have been more. And when we look at how Michigan responded and the response that Governor Whitmer put in place around mask orders, around closures, that was absolutely crucial and critical to control the spread of COVID-19. Now, there's a lot of people that are critical of her. We had a protest on the Capitol steps today of people that didn't want to mask up. I think it's completely foolish for people to be taking that approach. This is something that we all need to take seriously because when we don't, people die. And I think, and frankly, when we look at the pandemic across the state and across the country and across the world, we are seeing that this pandemic is exposing the socioeconomic fault lines that we knew existed all along. We see that Black and brown communities are getting hit harder. Communities where there is air pollution and water pollution problems are bearing the brunt of this because people's lungs and pre-existing conditions are causing this pandemic to run rampant and to cause higher rates of death and infection. It's unacceptable. But what it also shows us is that access to healthcare is a problem in this country. And if we're going to protect ourselves against COVID-19 and future pandemics, we need to implement a single-payer, universal healthcare system in the state of Michigan, in this country. It is the only way. It is so unfair and unjust that people have to make life and death decisions based on finances and not based on what is right for their health and for their family life. Better as a country, we can do better as a state, and that's what I've been pushing for in Lansing.
Thank you, Representative Rabi. And you also have the next question, sir. In recent years, Michigan has suffered actual and threatened environmental contamination, including the Gelman dioxane plume in Ann Arbor, contamination of the Kalamazoo River, the Flint water crisis, widespread PFAS contamination in our drinking water, the crumbling Line 5 under the Mackinac Bridge that threatens massive oil spillage into the Great Lakes. What are your priorities and strategies for protecting Michigan's water and environment?
This is one of my number one priorities, Jeff. Thank you for asking that question. This is what I've been working on since day one in Lansing. What we need to do, one of the many things we need to do, and I've introduced a lot of legislation in this area. When we look at things like the Gelman plume, when we look at things like the green ooze that happened in Oakland County, what we are seeing is state laws that do not adequately protect not only our environment, but also the citizens of this state. And what happens is polluters are able to get away with polluting and then walking away from their messes because we don't have strong polluter pay laws in the state of Michigan. One of the first bills that I introduced in my first term one of the first bills that I introduced in my second term was a bill to create polluter pay laws in the state of Michigan. If you make a mess, you've got to clean it up. What we're seeing with Gelman is we know who the polluter is. We know that they were negligent. We know that they polluted, and yet we still can't we still can't force them to clean up that mess to drinking water standards because of state laws that are created to protect manufacturers and protect these big businesses to be able to pollute our communities. We need to change that. We also need to look at things like Line 5. I have supported the shutdown of Line 5 since day one. It needs to happen. We need to protect our Great Lakes. We cannot suffer the same fate that the Kalamazoo oil spill caused in that area. We cannot do that. The aging line, Line 5 needs to be shut down immediately. We need to protect our Great Lakes in that regard. But also we need to look at climate change moving forward as well. This is one of the biggest issues that we are going to face in this generation, and it is happening every day. We can do so much to change the course, but this is our time. The clock is ticking, and if we don't take action, it will mean disastrous consequences in 10 years down the road or less.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Holland, same question to you, ma'am. And you need to unmute.
Protecting our water and our resources has to be top of the priorities. Without clean water, without clean air, without clean soil to grow our crops, life will cease to exist, period. I'm absolutely in favor of, if you make a mess, you have to clean it up. If our laws are not sufficient to enforce that kind of remedial action, then I absolutely support strengthening those laws to put the offender in charge of his or her own cleanup. Regarding specific actions on like Line 5, we cannot afford to contaminate our Great Lakes, where we have the most abundant fresh water supply in the world, and we have to protect it. I'm not so convinced about the climate change thing. I'm not certain that we as humans have that much effect over climate change. I mean, we had our ice age, and it's been warming up ever since, well before we came along. But those things that we can control, those things that we can legislate, the penalties should be severe for people who destroy or contaminate our environment.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. And you get the next question. On April 30, armed protesters carrying assault rifles entered the state capitol in Lansing. They were demonstrating against Governor Whitmer's executive orders trying to stop the spread of the COVID virus. And the protesters even tried to force themselves onto the floor of the legislature itself. Now, just a few days ago, on September 14, the Michigan Capitol Commission refused to ban the public from openly carrying firearms inside the state capitol. What do you think? Is it okay for the public to carry firearms, including assault rifles, inside the state capitol building and onto the floor of the Michigan legislature?
I support what is legal. I myself have a concealed weapons permit. I take great pride in being able to handle a firearm safely. If the weapons were legal, they should be able to be carried anywhere necessary, because where weapons are not allowed, that's where violence is likely to happen by folks who will break the law to carry their weapons. I don't agree with the protesters not wearing the masks. I do not agree with the protesters if they were to damage any property, but I 100% support their right to carry their firearms wherever they go.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. And Representative Rabi, same question to you, sir.
Thank you. So as I said earlier, I'm actually at the Capitol right now, and I was in the room when those armed political terrorists came to the Capitol to, display their guns, their camo, their military equipment that they had. They had tags on the back of their shirts that even said militia. Just the other day, we had a rally on the Capitol for Open Carry Day. There were people with Proud Boy shirts on. There were people with Confederate flags. These are people that are frankly not stable. These are people that are racists. These are people that are there to do political intimidation. And it is unacceptable in the halls of our government to have those types of individuals brandishing weapons to intimidate legislators. It's just not okay. And when we look at the Capitol Commission and the decision that it made to allow for guns to continue to be allowed in the Capitol, I would ask everybody watching this question. Signs are not allowed in the Capitol, but guns are. Is the First Amendment less important than the Second Amendment? The rationale for not allowing signs is that signs may damage the historic building. How are signs more damaging to the historic building than guns? The argument is ludicrous. We need to make sure that our place of government, which is frankly should be viewed as sacred to the people of the state of Michigan. This is where your elected representatives go to meet. We should be listening to you, our constituents, and not be intimidated by an armed mob yelling at us, chanting, trying to get in on the floor of the Capitol to make us change our votes. What were they there to do? What do you need a gun to do when you're in that Capitol building? When you're chanting, let us in, when you're trying to intimidate and push a racist agenda.
Thank you, Representative Rabi, and you get the next question. The League of Women Voters has consistently advocated for access to voting. These days, there's opposition to absentee and/or mail-in voting, as well as concerns about the ability of the United States Postal Service to deliver mailed ballots on time. The president even recently told people to try to vote twice, which of course is a felony. What solutions do you see for safe access to voting in Michigan?
Yes, thank you for that question. And first I want to say it is completely unacceptable that the president of the United States is encouraging people to break the law and to commit a felony. That is ridiculous and is scary in these troubling times that the president of the free world of the United States is encouraging people to break the law to commit election fraud. But what he has done is goes far beyond that to undermine the integrity in people's minds and in reality of our elections process. And that's why I've introduced a number of pieces of legislation to protect our elections process, to encourage more people to vote, but more importantly, to protect those that are voting from disenfranchisement. One of the bills that I introduced makes it so that any ballot mailed by election day, postmarked by election day, will be counted up until 6 days after the election. Under current law, if your ballot is not received by the clerk by 8 p.m. on election day, it does not count. And because of that, during the August primary, 6,000 votes across the state of Michigan were thrown out. If my bill would have been passed, most of those votes would have been counted. Those 6,000 voters deserve for their voice to be heard. The second bill that I introduced is around a signature mismatch. Right now, you have to sign the back of your mail-in ballot, and the clerk has to verify that signature against the signature that's on file. If there's a mismatch, your ballot's thrown out. Some communities call voters and ask them to correct the mismatch. Not every community does that. My bill would make it mandatory across the state. What ends up happening is as people get older, if people are losing their sight, or if they're having hand-eye coordination issues, their signature may change over time. And the signature that's on file from 10, 15 years ago may be different from the signature that the person is able to produce on the day that they're sending their ballot in. Folks deserve to have their vote counted, and that's what those bills would do.
Thank you, Representative Rabi. And Ms. Holland, same question to you, ma'am.
Every citizen who is legally allowed to vote should be able to vote. And no citizen should be allowed to vote twice. It's a very simple idea. Mail-in voting provides an opportunity for voting fraud. And so we have to build systems that will help reduce voter fraud on both sides of the fence. I'm not in favor of restricting voting for any reason. And Yousef is absolutely right. Every person who votes legitimately deserves to have that vote counted.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. And the next question also goes to you. This will be the last question for both of you. Michigan has some of the most deteriorated infrastructure in the nation. To fix our roads, Governor Whitmer proposed an increased gas tax, but the legislature blocked it. Considering the severe economic crisis associated with the COVID pandemic and the massive job losses, please give us your plan for how we can finally fix our roads in Michigan.
Raising taxes to fix the roads is not the way to go. We need to rework our budget and focus on the infrastructure improvements that are necessary. Raising taxes will only slow down our economy. I think that there isn't a department within the state that couldn't be reviewed for budget reallocation towards our roads. I absolutely understand that our bridges and our roads across the state are in terrible shape in many places. So you have to give up on one hand to fix it on the other. And so that's what I would do.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. And Representative Rabi, same question to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that question. That's actually really fantastic that you brought that up, because I actually do have a plan. It's a plan that we've introduced as the House Democratic Caucus to actually raise the money necessary to fix the roads. The governor outlined a plan to raise $2.5 billion in the state of Michigan to fix our roads. That's actually not even enough. If you look at the rate at which our road infrastructure has been deteriorating, we actually need more money than that to actually be able to bring our roads up to a higher standard. But our plan actually is not around increasing the gas tax, which is what the governor was proposing. I actually think that we can raise the funds necessary to fix our roads in the state of Michigan by making sure that everybody in the state is paying their fair share. Now that to me doesn't mean that everyday hardworking Michiganders need to pay more, but there are certain types of businesses in this state that do not pay their fair share. And the wealthy certainly do not pay their fair share in the state. The package of bills that we introduced has multiple aspects to it. One of those is making sure that heavy trucks that are driving on our roads are actually paying for the damage that they're doing to the roads. Heavy trucks are one of the major reasons why we have such wear and tear on our roads. We allow for some of the heaviest trucks in the country to drive on our roads. The bills that we introduced would impose a 6 cents per mile driven fee on trucks that carry over 25,000 pounds on the roads. I've also introduced a bill to increase the corporate tax rate in the state of Michigan. But that in and of itself, those two items won't be enough. I believe that we need to repeal a lot of the corporate tax credits and corporate tax breaks that result in basically cronyism in this town. We need to make sure that the public tax dollars are going to fund public infrastructure, not going to line the pockets of wealthy billionaires and CEOs in this state. And that's how we can fix our roads.
Thank you, Representative Rabi, and thank you, candidates, for your good answers. And now it's time for the closing statements. We'll begin with Ms. Holland. Ms. Holland, may we have your closing statement? And unmute, please.
I believe in smaller government. I believe in self-reliance, not dependence. I believe in personal achievement. I believe in doing business locally, because every dollar spent locally has a multiplying effect for that community. I believe in education and literacy. You cannot be successful if you cannot read, write, and do the basic tasks necessary. I believe we should protect our environment. I believe in the rule of law. I believe that family is important, and I believe that family takes a role in supporting our elderly as a supplement to social programs. So I believe that people are reliant, that people can take care of themselves, and also people should be responsible for their actions.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. And now, Representative Rabi, may we have your closing statement?
Absolutely. And I want to thank once again the League of Women Voters for the fantastic work that you do, for having this forum every time there's an election so that the voters know and understand what is on the ballot and what they have to vote on. So as I said before, my name is Yousef Rabi. I've been the state representative from the city of Ann Arbor for the past 4 years. I was a county commissioner for 6 years before that. It has been an honor to serve this community and to be a fighter for justice, to be a fighter for the people. I believe in an America, in a state, in a community with a different future. One where we are all together fighting for change and progress, and one where certain segments of our society can't take advantage of the rest of us. One where if you work hard and play by the rules, you should have a fair shot. One where the state isn't coming after organized labor and workers to take away their right to organize. A future where there is clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. A state where there is never again a Flint water crisis. A state where racial justice is at the top of our program, because we have recognized that too many generations have gone by where that issue has not been addressed and that divide has not been narrowed. We need to build a better America, and that is what's on the ballot in November, is what future do we want for this country? And I believe that we want a future that is brighter than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rabi, and thank you, candidates. You've been wonderful in participating in this valuable session, and we're grateful to you. I'll now return this back to Sue for our closing comments.
The League thanks the candidates for participating in tonight's forum and to those who contributed questions. All our candidates' forums will be available for streaming on your computer or smartphone. Go to our website, lwvannarbor.org, and look for the link to the programs. In addition, the forums can be viewed on Community Television Network. Please urge your friends and neighbors to watch the forums as well. For additional nonpartisan information on candidates and ballot issues, go to vote411.org. The League's voter resource guide covering local, state, and federal candidates and current proposals that will appear on your ballot. As a reminder, all registered voters can cast an absentee ballot this year. With the challenges that have been created by COVID-19 and confusion regarding registration and voting procedures, the League encourages you to vote as soon as possible after you feel knowledgeable about the candidates and ballot issues. The most important thing is to make sure you vote in the November 3rd general election. Good night.